event for Boston Product Management. So today's event is a panel discussion and on a really interesting topic, which is mastering the PM job search in 2023. So before we begin, some of you might be new to BPMA. So a quick introduction for who BPMA is. BPMA is Boston Product Management Association. We are a volunteer-led organization, and we lead this organization in the greater Boston area with different events, content. We also have mentorship and job board. So you can learn more about Boston Product Management Association on bostonproducts.org. We are currently recruiting for board member positions. So those board member positions, volunteer positions are listed on our website. So do check it out on anything that you might be interested in. We want to thank our sponsors who help us bring events like these to you. So we want to, these sponsorships and support help us bring content, events, and host a lot of other activities that BPMA does. So wanted to thank Pragmatic Institute, NTT Technology, Product Board, Agile New England, Boston New Technology, IBBA Boston Chapter, Mass TLC, Enterprise, Cambridge Forum, MITx, PMI, Central Mass Chapter, and TI Boston. A couple of guiding principles for today. We encourage cameras to be on, really helps with networking, getting to know each other. We also encourage networking in the Zoom chat. So feel free to use the Zoom chat to put in your name, your title, your industry, where you're located. And as we go along, feel free to ask questions or offer up your thoughts. So we really want a lot of engagement on our chat. We will have our team members, Hillary and Natalie, will be helping us watch those chat questions come in. With that, I would really like to welcome our panelists for today. We have three great speakers today. First is Larry Kahn, who is VP of Recruiting at NTT Technology, and he's also a long-time BPMA sponsor. Thank you, Larry, for being a panelist today and a sponsor with BPMA. Sean is another one of our excellent speakers today. He is a product coach and a consultant. And Olivia is a MBA student at Northwestern Kellogg School of Management. She is also a BPMA volunteer, and she manages social media for BPMA. So welcome, Sean and Olivia, and thank you for being a panelist. I would now want to open it up to our panelists for a quick round of introduction, and then we'll jump right into our panel discussion today.
Sure.
So starting with Larry. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Larry Kahn. I'm a long-term sponsor of the BPMA in its very beginning days. I'm a recruiter up in the Boston, Mass area. Our firm, New Dimensions in Technology, or we're known as NDT, specializes in permanent placement in product management, marketing, product marketing, as well as on the engineering side. So software engineering and some of the other tech roles that go along with that at small, mid-sized, and large technology companies.
Thank you, Larry. Sean, welcome to our panel today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Sean Leitner. I live here in Cleveland, Ohio. Been a fan of BPMA for some time. Have attended numerous events over the years. Been doing product management for about 12 years. The last 2+ years as a product consultant and coach, where we help clients, customers create strong product management practices so they can build products that their customers love. Experience in digital software solutions in payments, financial services, e-commerce, logistics, digital marketing. Also run a product networking group in Cleveland, similar to BPMA, since 2017. 900+ members. We hosted 70+ events in person and virtual as well. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Sean. Olivia, welcome to the panel.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Belitsky. I am a second-year MBA candidate at Northwestern Kellogg School of Management. Before Kellogg, I worked as a product manager for 5 years at Staples, Wayfair, and Morgan Stanley. And last summer, I worked at Amazon. Outside of school, I am really involved with BPMA, and I am an expert columnist with Built In, writing stories about product management. At school, I am a director of careers for our student government, which basically means I help students find the jobs they're looking for. And I run a product management interview prep group for our first-year students to help them with applying to jobs and getting their interviews. And the reason that I am here today is because I have job hunted a lot over the last couple of years. I was laid off in 2020. I had to find a job again in the spring when nobody was hiring because of hiring freezes. I was looking for jobs last winter when the school called it the tech bloodbath. I called it the sludge. And now here I am again. I'll be looking for a job again soon for when I graduate. So I'm really here to talk about the trends that we're seeing at Kellogg with regards to what people are hiring for in the product space, how we're looking at starting your job search, and how to prepare for interviews.
Thank you, Olivia. And lastly, me, I'm Prachi Bivalkar. I am a co-director of programming at BPMA. I'm joined here by a few other BPMA volunteers, Dave, Hillary, Natalie. So we welcome everyone to today's panel. Okay, so the reason we are here today is learn more about how do we master the job search in 2023. 2023 has been an interesting year. We've seen a lot of ups and downs, some good, some bad. So in general, the first thing we want to start focusing on is we are 10 months into 2023. What are some of the trends we are seeing? So Larry, I'm going to start with you. How would you describe the job market for product managers in 2023? And what do you see the future of the job market in 2024 and beyond?
Thank you. I think, Prachi, you led into this quite well. It's been an interesting and sort of roller coaster year for jobs in general, and specifically in product management. So at the beginning of the year, we did see a lot of layoffs and companies cutting back or not hiring. Then we went into that little mini bank crisis with Silicon Valley Bank, which put a sort of a hold on things because companies were a little unsure of what was going to be happening. But then we started to see an uptick in the late spring and early summer. And product management roles were certainly in the group of jobs that we started to see more of. So since then, we've seen a fairly good flow of product management job openings come into NDT with different sized companies. I will say that they've been more directed towards individual contributor product management roles. So more mid-level product managers, senior product managers, maybe just hedging right up to the director level. In terms of director and VP product management roles, haven't seen as many of those this year, but I think as we edge into 2024, we will see more at the senior level and continued growth in the individual contributor level.
Thank you, Larry. Olivia, you mentioned you've been on job search for a while. What are the trends that you're seeing as a person who is looking for jobs as a current or an aspiring product manager?
Yeah, so I'm seeing 3 broad trends in terms of the types of product management jobs that companies are recruiting for. The first is, of course, AI and AI adjacent product manager roles. I think that there's still a lot that we're going to be figuring out about what it means to be an AI product manager, but for sure, if you're going to be applying for product jobs, you need to have an idea of how you're going to leverage AI to deliver value to your users. And so thinking about AI products that are available, use cases, things like that, there's a huge focus on that. And if you want a primer, I super recommend Doug Levin's talk with BPMA last month. It's on our website, and he does a really great job of going over what the PM trends look like for AI product management. The second is anything related to community or network effects, because products no longer compete on features alone. Most products are becoming networked. So there's kind of three subcategories here. One is like, how are you going to compete for high value, high intent customers to strengthen your network? Think about how Microsoft Teams versus Slack isn't that different, but it all depends on the network and what your organization uses as to which one you're going to use. Another example is Apple Messenger. So think about how people really want the messages to be blue. And if you have one person who has the green message, that person can be kind of like shamed. And so thinking about ways that you want to integrate network effects and community into your products. Another thing is like, how are you going to integrate the power of your community to make your product unbeatable? So think about Notion, how people create templates, they create communities. Notion is very community driven. And finally, like, how are you going to leverage technology to create a real world community? So think about products like Bumble and Eventbrite that are digital products, but get people to meet in real life. I've been researching this a lot because it seems like there are a lot of jobs out there that are trying to focus on this community or networked problem. Super recommend this book, The Cold Start Problem, which has been really great for talking about network effects. And the third PM trend I'm seeing across the board is membership, loyalty, and subscription. Everybody wants to be Amazon Prime. I think most companies have not achieved Amazon Prime levels yet. So thinking about how could a company create value through a membership program? How are you going to communicate that to your users? How are you going to get creative to create membership programs that make sense? So broadly, like I said, AI, community, and membership and subscription seem to be three really big areas that companies are investing in right now for product jobs. And that's what I'm studying myself.
Thank you, Olivia. So the next question I want to pose it to all the three panelists, starting with Sean. Before starting the job search, what would you recommend as a product coach or a consultant for the person who is either an aspiring product manager or somebody who is looking to upskill or move to the next level?
Yeah, absolutely. There are numerous factors. I think one is create an identity. So what's your identity as a product person, right? What are you kind of known for? What's your passion? What are you an expert at, right? Some aspect of product management, which is a wide, requires a wide array of skills to be good at. So are you really good at continuous discovery? Are you really good at brainstorming? Are you good at prioritization, working with technical engineering teams, high quality? Maybe you have expertise in the domain, say you're in a highly regulated or a highly legislative environment. So create that identity and be involved with the community, and somewhat like Olivia said, and that you can bring value to the community in a lot of ways. And that kind of tees off kind of your strengths. So understanding what your strengths are. Are you good with technology? Do you build strong partnerships with stakeholders? These are kind of things that you can do in advance of searching the job market, right? Within your company, within whatever role you have right now, kind of assess a lot of what you do, what you're good at, what you don't know, and then what you need to improve on and what you want to invest in. And kind of how you want to take your career, right? Product can go lots of different ways because you have to have a lot of different skills. And you may have come from different disciplines. For example, you may have come from operations or engineering, who may have come from different parts of the organization, may have been product but not called product. So those are a few things that I would start with when starting your job search.
Excellent. Thanks, Sean. Larry, would want to get your thoughts from what you're seeing. What would you recommend as a recruiting agency?
Touched on a few things. I think what if a candidate is in a job now, what they should do is think about the wins that they can put on their resume, and then also think about some of the gaps where they need more experience for their next job. I think people also should look internally before leaving your job. Think about, am I better off staying with what I have and trying to grow within my current company to the next level, or do I package up what I've learned and what I've done at this job and move on to the next company? And for each candidate, that's going to be a little bit different. Where I see candidates get into trouble is they're taking jobs, they're staying for about a year and a half, and they're doing it on a consistent basis. And when the job market gets tough, the way it's been earlier this year, a lot of my client companies don't like that. They don't want to hire people who have had multiple short stints. So think hard, long and hard before you decide to move on and so on. If you're not working right now, the key thing is to have an excellent resume. You really got to have a very well-written resume. I'm not as concerned about cover letters. I don't know that cover letters are what they used to be, and a lot of companies don't even want them anymore. So I would spend more time on your resume. Don't be so concerned that it be a 1 or a 1.5 page resume. Spend more time on things that are going to create conversation. So my companies like to look at, what have you been doing recently that are skills and experiences that are transferable. So anything that you can put on your resume around numbers and quantifiable results is going to be important. Then you've got to think about your network. If you're going to start looking for a job, reach out to your network, but you've got to know what you're looking for. I'll speak to candidates sometimes and they'll say, well, I know I want a new job, but I'm not sure exactly what I want to do. Or I want a product management job that's different from what I have now. Well, what is it that you want to do? Well, I'm not sure. Well, that's not going to work today. You've got to have a little bit more experience and insight into what you want to do, and specifically for that specific company. Otherwise, you're wasting people's time. So I think before you start anything, you've got to think about some of the points that I've mentioned here now, and then you'll see for yourself, you're going to be a much more desirable candidate because you're focused, know what you want, and you're able to articulate the value that you bring to this next job.
Thanks, Larry. And just keeping an eye on the chat, I think your audio is a little muffled. I don't know if it's possible to either speak closer to the mic or talk louder or adjust, but just getting some feedback.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Those are some good tips. Olivia, from your point of view, what would you say?
Yeah, of course. And I'm in this space right now because I'm going to really start job searching in a couple of months. So I'm really taking this time to think about what kind of pre-work I can be doing. So one really important thing is going to be able to tell your story. We recommend 30 seconds or 2 minutes. I think usually telling your story is closer to 45 seconds, but you have to be able to answer the question, why product management? It is so competitive right now that becomes the question that can really hinge a good interview or not. Second thing is to create a to learn list. So if there's any gaps in your skill set right now that you can be working on, now is a great time to be doing that. So for example, I'm trying to learn more about AI and network effects, like I mentioned, but also practicing, developing, or managing others, which I'm doing through some club work at my school. A third thing is to create a key experiences list. So this is not necessarily related to getting a job in the near future, but thinking about what kinds of key experiences do I think I need to push my career forward. That's something we recommend. So it could be managing your first direct report or launching a whole new product, whatever that looks like, find opportunities to try to have key experiences that you think will push your career. And the next thing is my favorite thing, which is find opportunities to solve problems. Product management is fundamentally about problem solving. And so if you're in a place where you're thinking about applying to a job soon, or you're getting ready for that job search, really seek out opportunities to practice solving problems. You can do that either through taking stretch projects at work, getting involved in a community like BPMA, doing volunteer work. Something I did was I reached out to my undergraduate, Babson College, during the pandemic, and I asked if there was anything I could do to help. And we actually found something really cool that I could work on. So finding opportunities to practice solving problems will make you a better product manager. And finally, you've got to study product management like it's a part-time job. Like you've got to be listening to the podcasts, reading books, taking down your notes. It will make you better at interviewing. It'll help you tell your story. And it's also just a really good skill to have if you want to work in product.
Thank you, Olivia. The next question is about salary ranges. So Larry, I would like to get your thoughts. on what salary ranges trends have you seen in 2023 for product roles?
So I've seen some salaries come down a little bit, and then we sort of leveled off a bit too. So right now for individual contributor product management jobs in the Boston area, I'm seeing base salary ranges anywhere between the 120 to 175-ish area. And then each company, you know, will depend on whether there's a cash bonus, equity. I'm not seeing a lot with sign-on bonuses, but every once in a while, we can use those to sort of close a deal. But that's really been sort of the range. So I typically, when I get a middle level product management job, it's landing between 140 to 160. And then a senior product manager is anywhere from 165 to 175, maybe 180 days. And then there'll be some other things attached to that.
Thank you. I'm going to pause here and Hillary, just curious if you're seeing any questions in the chat.
I am seeing some commentary. Let me scroll back up and look at any questions that came through. Definitely some plus ones to Larry's note about capturing and documenting your wins. Dan mentioned this is also helpful for squads or pods you're embedded with in real time, and later as an artifact for you and others on the team to answer questions of what you all accomplished. If you did ask a question, I see a question about volunteering at BPMA, but question to Olivia about any favorite product podcasts or anyone else, recommendation for good podcasts. That came in a few times. And salary ranges for director and VP product roles. And I'll go to the other ones after.
May I answer that one? Because I saw that in the notes as well. I didn't address that, so let me address director and VP. So for the director and VP roles that we have seen, and I said we haven't seen as many as we would have liked in 2023. The director roles are a little bit lower. So we've seen director roles start around 185, 190, go up to 2.25, and then VP roles can be 2.25 into the low threes. So it's not been a fruitful year at that level. I do feel confident in speaking with our client companies that 2024 we're going to see a change in that area. Many companies have held on to their directors and VPs, but they might need some changes. They might need a change in leadership. And also, there's a lot going on with young companies who are growing. They have product managers at the IC level. And as they grow, they realize that they've got to hire a director or a VP. So I think there's going to be much more activity in 24 than what we experienced this year.
Thank you. And Olivia, any thoughts on, do you want to share a few product podcasts that you like?
Yeah, Lenny's podcast is basically a public service at this point, and everybody should be listening to it. That's my favorite podcast. It is called Lenny's Podcast. In terms of books, there's a ton of books. Let me just look at my shelf here. I'm really liking The Cold Start Problem. I really liked Amazon Unbound, which is about Amazon specifically, but it's a really great kind of use case in product management sort of a book. Competing Against Luck, that's Clayton Christensen's Jobs to Be Done book. And the Product Book, of course, if you haven't read it yet, that's just a really solid primer in product management. But you guys are also listing really good suggestions in the chat. And I want to ask, Sean, do you have any favorite books or podcasts?
Yeah, my favorite podcast is Rocketship.fm. I threw that in the chat. That's from the Product Collective group that puts on the industry product conference every year, virtually here in Cleveland and in Ireland. And the classic book for me is the Lean Product Playbook. That's kind of table stakes in a lot of ways for me.
Thank you, Olivia and Sean. So moving on to now focusing on job search. So Sean, I want to open up the next question to you, that what is your advice on how best to market yourself and stand out from competition?
Yeah, absolutely. There's three things that I've seen work for myself and for others that I coach or just people in my network. One, network, leverage the power of your network. And that's doesn't mean you have to go have coffee once a week with a bunch of randos. It's people within your current company, right? There might be a product guild or an agile guild within a company. If you're at a large enterprise, there might be a mentorship program at your organization. Tap into those resources available within your current organization. Many times, particularly if you're trying to get into product management, it's best to get into product management in your current organization because you have a track record from another discipline. You might be an engineer, an operations or customer success, things like that. That's an easier way to get into product management initially. Externally, again, use the power of your network. There's lots of available resources like BPMA, for example. If you're in the Northeast, here in Cleveland, obviously I have a product network group I'm fond of, but there's lots of virtual events out there. Product Coffee out of Atlanta is one of my favorites that I like to attend from time to time. So when you go to those kind of events, have a goal, right? Connect with people afterwards, right? If somebody says something interesting, here in the chat, people are sharing their name and their organization, LinkedIn profile, connect with people, have a substantive conversation with them, bring something of value to the conversation. But don't just, when you do network, whether it's internally, externally, don't go hat in hand asking for a job, right? That's not valuable. What you need to be able to do is bring something to the equation, bring something to the party. Do your research on who you're connecting with. Maybe they're in a company that you aspire to be in. Maybe they have a role that you aspire towards. Maybe their experience, maybe they're a recovering developer, as I like to call myself, right? Maybe they came from engineering. Maybe there's some commonalities there that you can share with, but also provide some help to them. Like, what can you introduce them to others, right? You may have seen something on LinkedIn or social media that they may have done recently. Congratulate them on a new role or an anniversary or something like that. And then the third thing I would say is write or publish, right? And that sounds daunting for those that haven't done before. And I just started doing that like 2 years ago on a regular basis. I write a newsletter every week. It's not Lenny's newsletter, but it is a newsletter. It helps me craft my story a little bit better and become a thought leader, right? Investigate, listen, learn, and then write about it, right? The best way to learn anything is to teach it. So if you're able to do that, and that could be something small and simple, like just commenting other people's LinkedIn posts, right? Or give your perspective on a podcast you listen to, or a blog that you read. So those are kind of three things that really help you accelerate and differentiate yourself from others.
Thanks, Sean. And yeah, networking and writing are two things I've struggled with myself. So these are some good pointers on how we can get better at it. So Sean, how does one prepare for the interview process? The product manager interview process can be long sometimes. So what do you recommend how should one prepare for the interview process, and any other recommendation that you would have for things that you generally see go wrong?
Absolutely. Piggybacking off what we were just talking about in terms of networking and writing, right? Those things help you learn more about product management and refine your elevator pitch in a lot of ways. Olivia mentioned, 30-second bit or a 2-minute bit about, what you are, what you do, not necessarily where you work, because that's obviously it may not be relevant anymore if you are actively looking for a product manager job, right? But be ready for questions like, why product management? Like, what drew you to product management? What drives you crazy about product management? What do you like most about it? What thought leaders do you follow, right? Whether it's podcasts or books, things that we already talked about. But during the interview process, be ready for things like, kind of scenario questions like, how would you improve Spotify's UI, or how would you improve Amazon's shopping experience, or what would you put on the 2024 roadmap for TikTok, right? What is your favorite product? right? If you're getting into product management, you should be able to really assess what products you enjoy as a consumer and be able to explain why you like them, right? My favorite product is an app called Game Changer. I have 2 kids, they play baseball, and you can score the games on Game Changer so that you can look at the stats later, but you can also broadcast to friends and family, grandparents, states away, and they can watch, their grandkids play baseball to some degree. So, there's a lot of value to that because that's what I enjoy. And I'm able to explicitly state, this is why it's got a good user experience, or it's free, or there's other features and capabilities that I enjoy. So be prepared for a question like that and be able to be explicit about why you enjoy certain products, and why you hate other products, right? Either user experience or price or buggy or down or whatever. And then there's always tactical questions like, how would you manage difficult stakeholders? How would you prioritize features A versus feature B? How would you define value, right? Because that's one thing that we product managers are always looking for is value, right? Within our products and bringing value to our customers. And then there's lots of resources. Olivia mentioned AI, for example, right? You could use ChatGPT to, create interview answers for you. Obviously, you got to be careful with that. You don't want to sound like a robot. You don't want to sound like C-3PO from Star Wars, right? You're humans. You're interviewing for a human position. So, there's lots of online resources out there. I mean, Cracking the PM Interview book by Gail Lakeman McDowell and Jackie Bavaro is a classic. And then there's, Glassdoor, Exponent, Stellar Peers. They have lots of interview questions out there that can help you, just wrap your head around what to expect during the interview process. And there's a few things that can go wrong. Obviously, the 3 things for me is not being prepared, right? You got to do your homework. We product people need to be prepared in any conversation we have, right? We're trying to convince our stakeholders for budget. We're trying to convince engineering of a feature we need to work on. So we got to be prepared. You got to know the discipline. I think Olivia mentioned we got to learn the lingo, right? You got to understand the discipline, right? And what it takes. What do you want out of the discipline and what attracts you to it, but how you bring value to the organization. And then the last thing is, if there's a lack of storytelling or persuasion, right? You're selling yourself during the interview, not unlike a product manager trying to sell an idea or a feature or capability to work on, right? So if you can't, as an interviewer, if you can't convince me that you're right for the job, how would I see you convincing a difficult stakeholder to see your way?
Yeah, those are some good tips. And any podcasts? I know you mentioned a book. Any podcasts do you recommend, Sean, for preparing for interviews?
No, not really. I mean, I just have, online resources, like Glassdoor, Exponent, Product Alliance. There's a few others like that. JobInterview.coach, Product Teacher. So kind of use online resources for those as opposed to podcasts, at least personally.
Okay, great. Olivia, I open up the same question to you as how do you prepare for the interview process? And what have you seen? Where do things go wrong?
Well, +1 to what Sean said, and I was taking some notes because there's some really good stuff in there. The only thing I'll add is frameworks. You don't have to memorize every product framework out there, but if you find a couple that really resonate with you, it can be helpful during a job interview to structure your thoughts through using frameworks. I have always found that when I was asked a really challenging question that I didn't know where to start, I'll pull back on a couple of frameworks in my head. And so I highly recommend studying a couple of key frameworks that will really help you answer some questions. Second, this was also mentioned, but knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are, you can go online and find like a list of like 30 or 50 core PM skills and just be able to identify the ones where you're a superstar and the ones where maybe you need work, because that'll really help you with crafting your stories and making sure you're telling the best version of yourself in interviews. Something I've always done is just considering the problems that the product is trying to solve and pretending to be the PM for the product before I go into the interview, so that I have some practice with thinking about different solutions and success metrics and what the competitors are doing. It's just a really good mind exercise when you're going into your interviews. And finally, write your stories. I have a list of all my interview stories. It's like 10 pages long at this point. I also will go through and I'll handwrite all of my stories before interviews. It takes a lot of time, but it really helps me remind me like the stories I'm trying to tell. So you're going to want to be prepared with your key stories before an interview.
Thank you, Olivia. Talking about how does one going back to the job market, and we spoke about how interesting and tricky it's been this year. Larry, I want to open the next question to you that how can a current or an aspiring product manager find an opportunity in this market?
So I'm a recruiter, so I'm going to be a little bit biased. I think if you have a good relationship with a recruiter like myself, who can know you, know your strengths, know what you're looking for, and build that relationship, then I can be on the lookout for you. If I have the right job for you, I will be in touch and so on. And you need someone who can really be your advocate to market you, your background to the company. But I think it's a multi-pronged approach today. So I spoke from the stance of a recruiter, but you also have to use your broader network too. So there you have LinkedIn, you have your network maybe from undergraduate or graduate school, you have your network with an organization like the BPMA, and you've really got to utilize that network. You've got to let people know what you're looking for. And this goes back to what I had said earlier. You've got to have your pitch down right. So before you harness your network, before you have those copies that Sean was talking about, or reach out to your network, know what you really want, so that when you do have those meetings, you can be effective and you have your elevator pitch down in terms of the skills that you bring, and how you could add value to a company. So I would say recruiter, your LinkedIn network, other groups that you have associations with, your university and master's network, and so on. So I think just being in that mode of anyone who you talk to from a professional standpoint, and say, it doesn't have to always be just about you. You can be talking to someone about their company and say, you sound like your company is growing in an interesting direction. I'm looking for a product manager and I'd like to do the following things. If anything ever comes up, please let me know. And you find that sometimes those are your best leads into a job.
That's great. Thank you, Larry. And as we think about job search is it's a two-way street. The company is recruiting a candidate, but even a candidate is hiring a company that they want to spend the next couple of years of their life in. So Sean, I would like to get your thoughts on what are some of the questions that a candidate should include about the company so they can learn a bit more about the company? And also, what are some of the watch outs, red flags about the company?
Yeah, there's since product management has a outsized role in many respects, right? It can be very influential within an organization, has an important role. Lots of questions to ask, but three come to mind. One is, does a product organization have a seat at the executive table, right? Is there, this kind of indicates or the broader product team, do you have the ability to influence, right? Because typically product doesn't have power, quote unquote, within an organization due to headcount and things like that. But is product represented, and is there product mindset at the organization when a strategy is created to kind of influence the direction of the organization? Second is, how are decisions made, generally speaking, right? Who determines the solution, right? Who's involved with brainstorming ideas, right? Those things that happen before you build a product. How are these decisions made? Is it, it gives you an indication of the type of culture that exists within an organization, kind of where product fits in it and where you would fit. It's command and control versus empowered teams, right? Those are kind of two extremes, but there's a lot of gray area in the middle. So having an idea of how decisions are made and where you fit in that, because as a product manager, you can have influence, which means you may have to make decisions, but are you empowered to make decisions? Will people second guess you? Those kinds of things. And then the third is, we product people love to build products, but we also, like Olivia said earlier, we like to solve problems. Ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to solve problems for customers. So do you have access to customers? Can you talk to them? Are any barriers for that? Can you do that on a regular basis, right? How continuous is continuous discovery, for example, right? So it indicates the ability to access your customers, which gives you an idea of the market, the problems they're trying to solve, the job to be done in many respects, and the opportunities that might exist within the market. And that can lead to a lot of innovation and a lot more ideas that might end up in your backlog that be prioritized later. So if you have access to customers, great. If you don't, if there's headwinds there, or if there's blocked access via some other group, like sales or somebody, then that's a red flag. So if those are the kind of three things that I would ask as a product role, as a product candidate. And if those, depending on those answers, those could be certainly red flags as well.
Thank you, Sean. I'm going to pause here and see if anyone in the audience had questions. So Natalie, if you're seeing any questions in the chat that.
Yeah, there's a question about, does the panel see major differences in approach, market, etc. for B2B versus B2C PMs?
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think some of the points that Olivia mentioned before or earlier today were excellent points, but I think they're more geared towards some of the B2C companies. My B2B companies, when they are looking for a product manager, are looking for different experiences and a different focus, and a lot of the questions are just they're slanted differently. So I think that it's hard sometimes, because if you've been a B2C product manager and you want to jump over to more of a B2B company, it can be a little bit harder than focusing your job on another B2C company. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in on that. Generally the principles are the same, but there's a longer runway to B2B, and I think, Larry, you said there's a kind of different experience and skill sets involved as well. B2B, you can't do as much kind of experimentation and trial and error on things. It might even involve vendors and relationships and contracts and APIs and things like that aren't as easy to change. So there definitely are some differences between B2B and B2C. From B2B, you kind of have a runway, experience, skill sets, that kind of thing. But B2C, you have challenges getting access to your customers too, right? They could be global customers, could be, you might even have access to them and might be unwilling to participate in user studies and things like that. So there's lots of B2C solutions out there, and just move over to the next one. So there's definitely some differences between B2B and B2C. And many companies are looking for, if they're hiring for B2B, they're looking for B2B experience, and vice versa.
Correct.
I can hop in on this one as well. So when I worked at Morgan Stanley, I worked on a B2B product. And so the biggest issues are, again, like not having access to your customers, because there are compliance issues. So what we did was we leveraged our sales contacts and our customer service contacts. We would just go downstairs and sit on the phone with the customer service reps and listen to the problems as they were coming in. Other things are, your requests are largely going to come from sales teams saying, we need to close a deal, can you add this feature? And you have to be able to balance what's good for the business with what's good for your customers. And other things is just having like a very long-term kind of point of view. So when I worked in e-commerce, we could have things launched in 2 weeks. When I worked at Morgan Stanley, you're looking at 3 months to a year, going through multiple rounds of compliance review, spending a lot of time on the phone with lawyers. And so it's a different skills. It's not, I mean, it's different tactics. It's the same job fundamentally, but it's different tactics, it's different patience, it's different timelines. because I've jumped between B2B and B2C, I don't see a huge difference between the two roles. But like your experience may vary. So that's my thought.
Thank you all. Okay, getting back to our job search. The next one I want to ask Larry, what do you see most organizations are looking for in a candidate in the product space? And if you could share some insights on different levels, what are some of the skills, experiences that are in demand right now?
So let me start with associate and junior PM. So, what we see there is my companies want to see that the candidate has worked on at least a piece of a product. So they've had some skin in the game, if you will. They've worked with engineers. They're learning product management. So sometimes the experiences there could be almost equivalent to a product analyst. But if their title is a product manager, that's fine. But they've got to have some strong association with engineering and product. I don't want to see marketing, more marketing type work for junior PM, because then my client companies will sort of think of that individual as more of a marketing person or a product marketing, not as much of a junior PM. As soon as we get into more mid-level and senior PMs, even going into director and VP, the biggest thing that I've seen in the last few years is my companies want to see that the product professional has worked on a product from concept through to market delivery. And I think that scales depending on the level. So, a senior PM, they might be looking at how many actual products have you worked on from concept through to market delivery. At a director and VP, they want to see a fair amount of experience at that level. But that seems to be very important to a lot of companies today, because there are so many pitfalls that can happen, as you're taking a product from a concept stage all the way through the delivery of the product. And companies want the war stories. They want to hear what went well, what didn't go well, and what learning can you bring to our organization. So that's been very important. At a senior PM, director, and VP, we need to see numbers. So tell me more about your product. How profitable was your product? Where does it line up in terms of its profitability to your specific company? What was the size of the market you were going after? How long has this product been out there, and how many revs has it had? So that they want some more meat as to what have you done with new products, with existing products, with turnaround products, and the more that you can show quantifiable results, black and white results, that's what companies like. They're more interested in seeing numbers than on a resume than telling them that you're entrepreneurial and you're great with teams and all this stuff that people put on their resume. If you can get to numbers, that's where you're going to have some fruitful conversations when you're on an interview.
Thank you, Larry. As a candidate is doing the job search, what are some of the common mistakes? And Sean, I would love to get your thoughts on this. What are some of the common mistakes during the process that can be prevented by the candidates?
Sure. We've hit on a couple of these already. One is don't just apply on Indeed or LinkedIn. Obviously, that's where the jobs exist, but kind of depending on what numbers you read, 50 to 70% of jobs are filled before they're even posted, or filled through network connections, not people just rage applying on Indeed or LinkedIn. In fact, my last two jobs were through network connections. One was through a personal friend of mine, and one was through an event like this, actually, in a follow-up conversation I had. So you have to, take numerous approaches, using all the resources available to you to be able to access a job. So, don't just apply on Indeed or LinkedIn. Wait back for the job offers to roll in, and don't wait to network. I learned a long time ago. Don't just once you get laid off, then you start working. That's too late. Or you have to network all along. You have to network a lot, or it takes a lot of repeated effort. So you may be happy with your job right now. Everything's satisfactory. You're being challenged. It's rewarding. You have a good team. Still network. Nothing wrong with that. And that could be internally or externally. I think Larry mentioned this earlier, kind of not perfecting your elevator pitch, right? When somebody asks you, what you do for a living, right? You should be able to have that 30-second, 2-minute elevator pitch be ready to go. And that shouldn't necessarily include where you work, right? Focus on what you do and explaining why you do it, right? And the passion you have around it and what you enjoy about it. And heck, if you can't explain it to your mom, then you won't be able to explain it to lots of people, right? And product management is kind of tricky in that regard. So, but you got to perfect that. And the last thing for me, and this is kind of a twig in my shoe, is don't just regurgitate, some random thought leaders' talking points, right? We can all read books, we can listen to podcasts, we can listen to conferences, read newsletters and blogs. But what companies want to hear is how you apply the theory in real life. I call it product management IRL, right? I've even interviewed people that sound like they just read a book or read a newsletter that I had read, and like, you're not telling me how you would apply that theory to our real world problems here. And those interviews don't usually go well for either party. So product management is in real life in particular is messy. The organizations we work in are messy. So knowing the theory is valuable, of course, and you do want to know that, but make sure you can apply the theory in real life and explain how you would do it.
Can I add on to what Sean said?
Yeah.
Sean, all of your points, I agree. One thing that I can't emphasize enough is keep your resume fresh. I recommend to all of my candidates that at least once a year, you should be updating your resume. So it doesn't mean that you're looking for a job, but at least update your experience so that it's fresh in your mind. And then if and when you need to look for a job, that resume is in good form and ready to go. Many times candidates will come to me and say, oh, I was laid off today. I've got to start my job search. Well, I need your resume. Well, it's going to take me a week, 10 days, whatever, to update it. And a lot of times they'll send me a version that it's not strong. And when I speak to them, then they'll start remembering some of the things that they accomplished. Try not to do that. Have your resume ready and manage your own career. And that's where we are in this world today. You've got to manage your own career. No one else is going to do it for you. Companies don't do it anymore. Manage your own career and keep your resume fresh.
Thank you, Larry. Olivia, anything for you to add here?
Really quickly, because they said some really great things. Just I'll tell you that this is for perhaps Amazon specifically, but also I've heard this at other companies as well, is the we versus I when you're answering questions. As product managers, we love to share the credit. But there are some companies where if you keep saying we accomplished this, we did that, they're going to push back and say, but what did you do? So being able to tell your story really clearly and give credit where credit is due, but also make it clear what contributions you had. That's something I had to really practice because it didn't come naturally to me. Secondly, being able to quantify your success is huge. I would also say be prepared with a really good failure answer and what you learned. And let me see what else. Just, again, why product, being able to explain your story, product management, all that good stuff.
Thank you. And Olivia, as you are currently pursuing your MBA, how did you decide if MBA is right for you? And do you need an MBA to become a successful PM in this market?
No, you do not need an MBA. I say this as someone who is getting an MBA, because if anybody ever tells you that you need an MBA to be successful, they're lying. But depending on your goals and your career aspirations and where you want to end up, an MBA might make a lot of sense for you. So for me, I applied to business school twice in 2020 and in 2021. I got in 2020 and I just didn't feel ready to go. I really applied because I was laid off and I was scared. And I got this offer at Morgan Stanley and it sounded really cool. And I thought, you know what, I can always go to business school later. I really want to try working on this product. And then after 2 years, I had more experience just understanding what I wanted from my product career, who I wanted to be. I also set up a little independent board of directors for myself, which was like 6 product managers who I thought were really awesome. And I reached out to them and asked them, and all 6 of them had MBAs. Again, maybe that's, I always hesitate to say you need an MBA to be like a great PM, because I don't believe that, but I saw the writing on the wall that the PMs I looked up to all had MBAs. And so it just felt like the right time for me to apply. And so I'm glad that I went. I think it's made sense for my career. But it definitely has to come from you. You have to know what your story is, what your goals are if you want to pursue an MBA. And also, I will add, you can get really great part-time MBAs as well. So you do not have to go the full-time route like I did.
Thanks. And Larry, I want to ask the same question to you. Are you seeing a lot of, is this a requirement for companies now to have an MBA in this market?
Changed a lot. So again, I've been in this in recruiting for 28 years. When I first entered the business in the 90s, MBAs were necessary to get ahead in product management and marketing. I have one myself from Babson. So I think that, to Olivia's point, if it's sort of, a life goal of yours to get it, and you can never go wrong with the learning. Or if your target is certain types of companies that do still value that MBA and need that for you to advance at their company, then that's a personal decision. And how you go about doing it, as Olivia said, is there's so many different ways to do it without giving up 2 years of income and so on. But my companies value experience over an MBA. They would prefer to have someone who brings strong product experience, professional experience versus just 2 years of an MBA.
Thank you. And I want to thank all our panelists for answering these questions, and the insight that you've provided is super valuable for me, and I'm sure it is for the audience. We do have about 2 minutes. So Natalie, are there any questions that we can, maybe a question or two?
Yeah, there's a quick question I think we could probably answer. Are there certifications that are credible for a PM, product school, Pragmatic Institute?
There are, and more universities are offering product management coursework, which I think is a good thing. So I think if you go online, or if you're in a vicinity where you actually want to take a course live, you've got to look at some of the local universities. But there's so much you can do online and in person. I think that courses are great. And even to Olivia's point earlier, taking a course just so that you have a more classroom perspective, so that when you interview, you'll have a framework in which to refer back to. I think that's always a good thing. And continuous learning in your career is always a good thing. But I don't see requirements on job descriptions from my client companies asking for that type of coursework. I think it's just helpful and help with your interviews.
Thank you, Annie. Okay, we are at time. Thank you so much, Sean, Larry, and Olivia, for your insights and for your time today. And thank you everyone who spent their lunch hour with us listening to this panel discussion. We didn't get through all the questions, but we're going to try and collect them and respond to them offline. The recording of this event will be available on the bostonproduct.org website. And thank you, everyone, and we look forward to having you at our next event.
Thank you.
With that, we conclude our panel today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Natalie, for reading out the questions.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I was trying to answer some questions too, the like more like easier ones that didn't need the panel response.
Okay, I think we have most people who dropped off. Yeah, just making sure I close the room
Yeah,
and the chat.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. I think people liked it.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of, I forgot to send out the survey, but we'll send out in the email.
Yeah.
People tend to fill it out in an email.
Mhm.
But yeah, a lot of, people seem to have liked it.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks, Natalie. I'll
Sure, talk
talk
to you later. Bye.
Bye.